Liz Truss got fired. Rachel from accounts is screwing the economy on a daily basis, and Keir Starmer just sits there. I can't get the names wrong.
We're all doing it. So I'll tell you what, though, you know, he really doesn't get it. He says, you know, I might not keep her, and everybody goes, yes, and he comes out, no, I will keep her.
Well, he didn't.
That's not what we want. No, I'm talking about Rachel.
Oh, mate, honestly. Listen, Kev is here. Brilliant show as ever. Keep your calls coming, 0344 499 1000. Petri is here from 10 o'clock tonight. Text as well to both them, 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow. Ta-ra.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
There you are. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I am your honest host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be with you for the next 3 hours of news, views and topical debate all the way to 10 o'clock. Get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000. It's good to talk on Talk, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number, and I promise to play your message out. It's a Super Tuesday. Here's what's coming up. Another 280 migrants crossed the Channel illegally yesterday to be welcomed into the warm embrace of Starmer's stupid Britain, where every criminal, terrorist and drug deal is welcome. No questions asked. So, in the absence of any deterrence whatsoever, how's two-tier Keir's brilliant smash the gangs strategy going? How many people smugglers have been caught since the Prime Minister and his hilarious Home Secretary Yvette Cooper launched their crack border security command and shelled out more than $150 million, £150 million on high-tech equipment to nab the bad guys? Oh, I know. Nada, zero, none, and still the migrants come. What a sick joke. 0344 499 1000. But one dynamic government initiative is really taking effect. Angela Rayner's ridiculous workers' rights reforms, which look set to force publicans to ban conversations about trans issues or religious matters in case the controversial banter offends the bar staff, who might then launch legal action. Welcome to Labour's balmy Britain. Stay tuned for the details. 03444991000. I'll get the latest from Rod Liddle on his war against the hand-wringing middle-class liberalism that enabled the Pakistani rape gangsters to abuse thousands of vulnerable white girls. And after the allegedly corrupt anti-corruption minister, Tulip Siddiq, finally walked the plank, I'll ask Rod if he thinks Free Gear Keir should, in his next move, sack the disastrous Rachel from accounts. What do you think? 03444991000. In other news, as fury mounts against so-called grifters, Harry and Meghan and their crass photo-op visit to somehow comfort the victims of the Los Angeles fire, are the Duke and Duchess of Netflix, as critics have charged, disaster tourists? Are they tragedy vultures? 03444991000. The gruesome twosome from Montecito, who travelled 200 miles to get involved in the carnage down there in LA, are apparently offended by any such suggestion. Good to know, but we don't care. They are also, Harry and Meghan, angry at Facebook boss Mark Zuckerberg for sacking all of his social media fact-checkers, also known as left-wing censors. In other American news, the dozy Democrats are still suffering from serious Trump derangement syndrome, waffling on about how Donald would have definitely been convicted of subverting democracy if he hadn't triumphed in the Democratic presidential election. But he did, didn't he? And you lot have finished. Give it up, you ridiculous losers. Did you really believe that cackling Camilla, the worst candidate ever, was going to win? Did you really think that? Honestly. 03444991000. I'll bring you the bizarre story, also, of the addiction treatment centres where staff, get this, have been banned from using terms like get clean, sober, drug-free, alcoholic, and so on and so forth, because these terms are inconsiderate to the junkies and the boozers. They're trying to get clean. This isn't just wokery gone mad. It's dangerous wokery that will almost certainly cost lives. How are the doctors and experts supposed to help the addicts if they're not allowed to use the relevant language? 03444991000. And finally, I'll go north of the border to get the story on former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, who has announced the end of her marriage to ex-Scottish National Party Chief Executive Peter Mullins ahead of his embezzlement trial. Just a coincidence, or is she distancing herself? What do you reckon? Did comically woke self-styled Queen of Scots Nicola lay the groundwork for the decline and fall of the SNP? What do you think? 03444991000. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Tuesday night together. And after that rather long monologue, let's go straight over to my first guest. Very pleased to have him on board, as always. I'm not going to call him this anymore. It says here, former Deputy Leader of Reform UK. Let's call him brilliant social commentator and brilliant political commentator, Ben Habib. Welcome, Ben.
Good evening, Kevin. Well, thank you very much for the rewriting of my title. I much prefer your description.
Yeah, we can't keep calling you former Deputy Leader of Reform UK. You've left. Everybody's got to get used to it, you know? We'll talk in a little while about the latest move by the Reform UK party, which seems to be to have welcomed into its ranks Charlie Mullins, the Pimlico plumber, who some people refer to as Dino Rod Stewart. He's a nice bloke, old Charlie, but he has opinions, very strong opinions, that I would suggest do not gel with what Reform UK is all about. He was an absolute fundamentalist about the COVID jab. If you didn't get jabbed, he wanted you locked in your house, you couldn't come out. And he remains a manic Ramona. Why is Reform UK asking him into the party? We'll talk about that in a little while, but on a far more important level nationally, Ben, guess what? Another 280 migrants made the illegal voyage across the Channel yesterday as two-tier Kia's laughably ineffective smash the gangs prevention strategy continues to fail on an epic level. So they're still coming. This Prime Minister and his laughable Home Secretary, their idea is let's catch all these people smugglers. Well, so far, having, by the way, spent more than £150 million equipping its crack Border Security Command to smash these gangs, the number of smugglers that they've caught is zero. None. That's since July. So their strategy's all wrong anyway. They have to stop the migrants, not the people smugglers. You arrest every people smuggler today, there'll be new ones tomorrow. You've got to stop the migrants. So you know, I mean, your thoughts on this absolutely hopeless, hapless government in terms of the migrant crisis. They're not only not doing anything to solve it, it's no mean feat, but they've made it worse since the Tories left.
I mean, it is symptomatic of a country that has lost control of its borders and its identity, a country which doesn't have the political will to stand up for its own people. You know, if you don't have borders, that means civil society in the United Kingdom is effectively at the mercy of foreign assaults which we have no control over. People coming into our country, mostly young, as often pointed out, fighting age young men who cross the Channel from a perfectly safe country, France, get met by border force, so-called border force. I think border taxi service is more appropriate, met in the middle of the Channel, given a warm blanket, a cup of tea, a Kit Kat, brought safely back to British shores, put in a 4-star hotel. The 280 entrants today will cost the Exchequer £15 million a year, every year, probably in perpetuity. The cost is massive. And of course, you know, that's nothing, in my view, by comparison to the damage it's doing to the fabric of the United Kingdom and the threats that it poses. You know, borders, as I indicated earlier, are there to protect civil society in the United Kingdom. You set those borders aside and you create the ability for civil society to be assaulted. And that's what we're increasingly seeing. And you talked earlier in your very good monologue, if I may say,
thank you,
about the need to shut down free speech and pubs not, you know, banning discussions on, you know, ethnicity and this, that, and the other. When you allow the fabric of a culture to be so broken up as we are, you have to ban free speech because you're going to offend everyone, left, right, and centre, because you've got so many different factions in your country all pulling in different directions. The only way to keep the peace is to shut down free speech. And of course, that leads inevitably and almost immediately to the end of democracy. You know, an inherent component of free speech, democracy is free speech. Without free speech, you have no democracy. So what we're seeing actually in this inability to control our borders is the end of our democracy. And I know I took a few steps to get there, but I hope the dots are joined up, you know, sufficiently clearly for people to realize that this is not a humanitarian benefit for the globe, the United Kingdom setting down its borders. What we're doing is setting aside the very existence of the nation state of the United Kingdom, our culture, our free speech, our democracy, the values we stand for. Everything is being set aside because we have a government that doesn't understand the importance of sovereignty, borders, the protection of civil society in the United Kingdom.
Absolutely. And let me ask the audience, the viewers and the listeners, give me a call. Let me know what you think about this, as Ben's just pointing out. In effect, this government is bringing in measures that could well ban you, me, Ben, everybody in the country from discussing topics such as trans rights, religion, anything slightly controversial. You might be banned from talking about that in pubs. Now, if that is not, as Ben said, a direct exocet straight into the heart of traditional British society, you're banned from talking about topics in the pub. I don't know what is. Let me know what you think about that. 0344 499 1000. Yeah, Ben, over in Germany, let's talk about Reform UK. They had a good day in some respects today because a new poll has revealed that they've overtaken the Conservatives, the Tories, and are now second place to the Labour government, 1 point behind the increasingly unpopular Labour government. Now, over in Germany, the right-wing AfD party is also soaring in popularity after promising this: the total closure of Germany's borders for 100 days, the turning back of anyone travelling without documents, and the mass deportations of immigrants, some of whom will officially be citizens or living in that country. So very hardline stuff. This has caused the AfD to soar in popularity. Now, in the old days, I would have said, well, Reform UK can seize that mantle. And it always did sort of have that mantle. And on the back of that, there's every possibility, in my view, that Nigel Farage could be the next Prime Minister because, you know, solving the migrant crisis will be hugely popular. So I'd like your thoughts on that. But hand in hand, I suppose, with what I was just saying. Last Friday, Nigel Farage and then the chairman, Zia Yousaf, appearing on television to say, oh, we've kind of changed our minds about the ISIS bride terrorist Shamima Begum. We think maybe she should come back to Britain. We think maybe she'd be better off, we'd be better off as a nation if she was in a British jail. Couldn't agree less. What a load of claptrap. I don't know why they're parroting that, but they are parroting that. And then, as I say today, Charlie Mullins, as I say, I want to stress this, he's a nice guy, but I don't agree with what he stands for. He was a real fundamentalist about the COVID jab. If you don't get that jab, you aren't allowed out of your house. You're a pariah.
No jab, no job.
No jab, no job. He said he would not employ anyone who didn't have the jab. He's got every right to have that opinion. I don't agree with it. And I thought that Reform UK would not agree with it. Furthermore, and far more fundamentally when it comes to Reform UK, he is a rabid Remainer, a Ramona Supreme. He was on Mike Graham's breakfast show this morning here on Talk, saying that Nigel Farage has asked him to stand as a candidate for Reform UK. I mean, what's going on?
I don't know what's going on with Reform. I don't wish to denounce Reform without really being in the inner circle. But can I just say before I talk about Reform, AfD, everything that you described about AfD's declaration today, in any historic period, other than the current paradigm in which we live, was just basic common sense. Enforce your borders, turn away anyone who hasn't got documents. If you're illegally in the country, you get deported. And if you're there and you've got a dual nationality, we will repatriate you in due course because we want a settled, German culture. We want an integrated, peaceful, homogenous country. Perfectly reasonable aims. But now somehow those aims have become far right or extreme if you hold them. And Reform should really be occupying that space. But I've been seeing for many months now, because I watch these things obviously more closely than the average punter on the street, but I've been seeing for a long time now, Reform slowly moving away from its initial credentials, which was anti-European, strong borders, deregulate, cut taxes, sovereign United Kingdom, deport illegal migrants and so on, to a softer, lefty kind of position. So, for example, Nigel is recently on the record saying he's not concerned about the rate of demographic change in this country. He cares about the culture, but not the rate of demographic change. Well, in my view, you can't care about the culture if you're not concerned about the rate of demographic change. They go hand in hand. He's on the record saying that he's not in favor of mass deportations of illegal migrants. Well, I can't make any case for not being in. You have to be in favor of deportation of illegal migrants. Otherwise, what is the point of borders? He's on the record saying he would consider a return of Shamima Begum. It's something he wouldn't wish to do, but he would consider it. In my view, there's no case possibly that we should ever consider the repatriation of a genocidal terrorist who we know with our own criminal justice system will serve a few years, be released. We won't be able to deport her anywhere. She'll be back on the street with her antipathetic hatred of the United Kingdom. We cannot have her back in this country. She's much better off in Syria. Leave her where she is. She went there of her own free volition. She can stay there. And now Charlie Mullins. And I tweeted this morning up when I saw Mike Graham's clip that Charlie was going to stand for reform, saying, I can't believe that reform would have him on. Reform, remember, is the modern iteration of the Brexit Party. It literally exists to oppose Remainer ideology. And some people tweeted back saying, well, Charlie's entitled to change his mind. But this evening, he went on GB News at about 5 o'clock this evening and said he would vote again to remain. He thinks it was a big mistake to leave the EU and would go back in.
You can't have a voice like that in the Reform UK party, can you?
No, I mean, the whole point about reform, I thought, was to stand for a sovereign United Kingdom. That means you can't have freedom of movement. That means you can't hand over lawmaking to a foreign power. It means you can't take on the euro, which is a foreign currency, and give up your monetary policy. It means making policies for the United Kingdom rather than for the European Union, and so on and so on and so on. If you lose touch, if Reform UK loses touch with the requirement for a sovereign United Kingdom, frankly, there is no point to reform. Reform only exists because we need to reinstitute a sovereign United Kingdom. We do not have one. We haven't got Brexit. We never left the EU. We're still tethered to the EU, and Northern Ireland has been left behind. There's no place for anyone like Charlie Mullins in Reform UK. If Reform UK has a political philosophy, or at least one on which it was founded.
Yeah.
It seems to me, Kevin, that what Reform is doing, and it's misreading it badly, is tacking to the centre ground, thinking if it's to win the general election, it needs to appeal to the centre ground. But take a leaf out of just about every single political movement across Europe and the United States, and indeed in this country, which I will explain if explanation is needed, and you will see that the entire populace of Western Europe, the United States, and the United Kingdom wants sovereign conservatism based on capitalism. They are sick of the socialist, liberal, global order. They want to reject that, and they want to go back to nation states. And if Nigel is tacking Reform UK to that centre ground, he may be doing well in the polls at the moment, but I think he's going to suffer quite a big setback. He's got to reacquaint himself with what reform exists to deliver.
Absolutely. It sounds to me, Ben, without a shadow of a doubt, that reform, in its desire to, pull in more and more members, and its membership is going up, is moving to the left in order to be more mainstream.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
And I think a lot of its traditional supporters will be alienated by that. We'll see how that comes out in the wash. But saying Shamima Begum should come back and getting Remainer Charlie Mullins to bang the drum for them, very strange stuff, I think. I think they should be careful. Listen, we better go to break now, Ben. When we come back, we're going to talk about this pub banter ban, which is rather sinister and chilling. That next. Stay tuned.
simply do not have the capacity for a massive expansion in AI at the moment. I mean, you take West London, for example, so many data centres being constructed there in recent years, and they've consumed so much of the capacity of the grid that housing developers have been told, well, sorry, that there's just no grid capacity for you to build new homes, and won't be till 2035. Right.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still talking to political and social commentator Ben Habib. Ben, you alluded to this earlier, but let's talk about this in some detail. In my view, it's a snapshot of modern Britain, of Starmer's stupid Britain, that pubs could soon be set to impose an extraordinary ban on customers, drinkers, discussing religious views, transgender rights, anything you might consider to be somewhat controversial. It's a ludicrous, but it's a serious situation. It's thanks to Angela Rayner's workers' rights reforms, which require, by law, employers to protect staff from being harassed at work by third parties, as in drinkers, customers, clients. So if bar staff overhear conversations involving what are classified in this act or this workers' reforms, philosophical beliefs that they find offensive, they could potentially sue the landlord, the pub owners. So when the pub owners impose these bans, we mustn't be too harsh on them. They're trying to protect themselves against this ridiculous Labour initiative. But it's taken us to a very dark place, and Labour should think about this. In a similar vein, football clubs, for example, could end up in a world of trouble, because if the fans start going, "Hey, ref, are you blind?" Which of course they do. They usually say, "Are you effing blind?" But you know what I mean. And they have chants about that. Now, fans who are partially sighted or really blind could sue the club for being offended. This Workers' Rights Reform Act just cuts to the heart of our social lives, and something has to be done to stop this.
So, I mean, what we've got in the UK and Western civilization generally is this massive move towards liberalism. We touched on it in the previous segment. And liberalism, in its purest form, which is what we've got, is the promotion of the individual's right to believe whatever they wish to believe, practice whatever they wish to practice, hold whichever views they wish to hold, and to hell with the majority. That's what liberalism in its purest form is, and that's what we're practicing. And in the pursuit of promoting the individual and allowing the individual to have whatever views, beliefs, and so on that they wish to have, we have become so sensitive to being challenged, or our governance has become so sensitive to being challenged by what's in the majority's interest or what the majority believe, that the majority need to be shut down. They need to have laws brought out to prevent them from expressing what you and I might regard as commonsensical points of view. Indeed, using language the way we used to, and I used it habitually when I was on a hockey pitch or a football pitch, asking whether the ref could see straight or not. But you've got to shut that language down if you want the individual to reign supreme. And when you shut that language down, what you do, as I mentioned, is stand against what the majority think, what the majority are feeling, and in essence, you are shutting down democracy. That is where we have landed in the pursuit of liberalism. We've ended up setting aside democracy, and we had, I'm changing the subject, but Slightly digressing, but absolutely on the same line. We had the Labour MP, Tahir Ali, inviting Parliament, inviting Keir Starmer to bring in a law to shut down any criticism of the Abrahamic faith. Well, that is the reintroduction of blasphemy law.
Yeah.
We've already got non-crime hate incidents,
which we got rid of in 2008, I do believe, and about time too. Yeah.
And hadn't been implemented or used for about 100 years.
Yeah.
And now they're proposing bringing them back.
Yeah, we're going backwards, aren't we, Ben? We're going backwards.
Absolutely, and we are all the modernity, the progress we made, actually in part as a result of liberalism, is now going to be set aside by this rampant form of purist liberalism without any balance for democracy. We say we live in a liberal democracy. We don't live in a liberal democracy anymore. We increasingly live in an enforced liberal society where democracy has been set aside, and democracy needs to reassert itself.
And where, in effect, it is a fact, you have no right not to be offended. There are no laws in place that make being offensive illegal. And yet our entire system seems to be going that way. So the victim, if I say, I'm partially sighted and they were chanting about the referee being blind, I hereby sue, that is seen as a really right and just legal action because my offence as the individual overrides the 30,000 strong crowd and the players and everybody else who actually don't mind. In the pubs, the offence of the bar staff, a bar man or woman said, I found that trans discussion offensive. You could turn around and say, well, I don't really care. Suck it up, grow up. But under these laws, the alleged victim reigns supreme, and there's a problem there, a huge problem, I think.
A huge problem. And, we see the other side of the same coin is the hijacking of the English language, the way words are used, the way words are weaponized in order to shut down debate. And, the Oxfam, I don't know if you saw a couple of years ago, came out with a 92-page report on decolonizing the English language. And that was all aimed effectively at precisely the kind of thing you're talking about now. Yeah. So you can't say mother and father. You have to say parent. Yeah. I mean, how absurd is that?
Well, you'll be interested, Ben, perhaps, I don't know what you're doing, but later on we're going to be doing an item about drug treatment centres for addicts and alcoholics in the Hampshire area. The staff, the experts, the doctors who help treat addicts and alcoholics have been banned from using words like alcoholics or drug-free or sober because it's offensive to the junkies and the boozers they're trying to help.
So you can't diagnose a problem properly.
I know,
because you're not allowed to use language.
Yeah, at which point, it is literally Orwellian. At which point, this wokery moves from being comically ludicrous to actually medically dangerous. It's unbelievable. Seriously. It's unbelievable. Ben, I know you got to go, but thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure. Ben Habib there, I will say he was the deputy leader of Reform UK, but that's a while ago now. He's now a welcome guest on this show anytime as an excellent social and political commentator. What do you think about what he had to say? Let me know, 0344 499 1000. Do you, if you're a Reform supporter, are you worried about Reform UK embracing a guy like Charlie Mullins, who was pretty much a very, very hard line on getting the jab? No jab, no job. He wouldn't let anybody work for him who hadn't had the jab, didn't believe that people who had the jab should be allowed out of their homes, and is a manic Remainer. He opposes Brexit to this day. If you're a Reform UK supporter, what do you think about Charlie says that Nigel Farage has asked him to stand for Reform UK? What do you make of that? 0344 499 1000. We're going to go to break now, and for the next half an hour we'll be joined by prolific columnist Rod Liddle. Looking forward to that. Stay where you are.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Right, let's go straight to my next guest. He is a columnist for The Sun, The Sunday Times and The Spectator, and now he is a presenter on Times Radio every Saturday morning from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. Welcome, Rod.
Hiya, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, I caught some of your show, not all of it, but you're pretty good at this, Lark. I enjoyed very much your session with Ali Ross. I see you've become a TV critic now in the Sunday Times, and also with David Owen. So, yeah, good show. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I was terrified, obviously, but yeah, it was. I think it was a good show in the end. I mean, and I was awestruck by Lord Owen, of course. And Ali Ross is a mate,
yeah.
So it was a thoroughly enjoyable time. Got some good feedback, and I just hope that people found it mildly interesting rather than a crock of.
Yeah. By the way, I think Lord Owen wants you to be awestruck by him, so mission accomplished there. But it's a very interesting item, seriously. Right, let's get straight to it. Now, you wrote in The Spectator about who will join my war on liberalism. I will. I'll join. Let's talk about it, though. It is this madness that's still going on. These hand-wringing, white middle-class politicians, mainly, but also coppers, teachers, social workers, local councillors, who still think we're being a bit racist by focusing on the ethnicity of the Pakistani gang rapists.
Yeah. Whereas it's crucial to the case. And, you know, people are still wary of saying the word Islam or Muslim in relation to these horrible, violent and perverted actions which took place against hundreds and hundreds of girls across the country. We still can't say that, you know, the thing is, Kev, if it had been Methodists or Christadelphians or Roman Catholics who perpetrated these abuses, the ideology, the church, the religion would have been brought into question. You know, if nearly everyone had been of the same religion, people would have said, well, can we put two and two together? Well, what's going on here? Is there a link? And of course there's a link. you know there's a link. And so the same stupidity is still going on. And of course, as we mentioned last week, Kevin, you know, Sir Keir Starmer says that it's clambering on the right-wing bandwagon. It's exactly the same thing that was said by idiots like Starmer in 2005, 2006, which stopped the things being investigated then. Oh, you're climbing on a right-wing bandwagon if you want to investigate this. There's nothing to see here, move on. It is... And we can't seem to stop it. I was hoping that this liberal idiocy was in abeyance, and I think in many ways it is, certainly in Europe and certainly in the USA. But we seem to be the last bastion of its real fundamentalist stupidity.
And it is, you know, on last Friday in The Guardian, Wes Streeting, the health secretary, there he was saying, you know, that this rhetoric, as he called it, surrounding the ethnicity of the the rape gangs, could lead to a repetition of the mosque massacre like they had in New Zealand. What are we supposed to do then, Rod? Because it might lead to a massacre, we're not allowed to mention it.
And of course, Streeting is probably the best of them. Streeting is probably the best that Labour's got to offer. Yeah. And he is too thick to understand that there is a problem there with integration, with assimilation. Because, of course, we didn't integrate, we didn't assimilate because of people like Streeting. Because of people like Streeting, we didn't properly say, look, here are some British values, live by them. We didn't do any of that. We allowed them to put their religion ahead of their loyalty to the country, and their previous ethnicity ahead of their loyalty to our country. You wouldn't get that in most European countries. You certainly wouldn't get it in Pakistan or Bangladesh. Yeah. You know, And so this is decades of failure by a discredited and, I think, dying creed, which is, you know, the liberal multicultural view of the world, which doesn't exist. It has failed on every level.
Do you think, given that Keir and Wes and the gang still continue with this outmoded attitude, let's be careful here because we're talking about people of colour, we're talking about Muslims, we're talking about people who aren't British, so we have to be kind here. Do you feel that they, in so doing, they will be the architects of their own downfall come the next election?
Yes, I do. I think this whole creed is disappearing across the world. It's already disappeared from Europe almost entirely. It's disappearing very rapidly from the USA. Mm-hmm. All the equality, diversity, inclusivity stuff, all the horrible things which are done to make ordinary people who live in this country feel bad about themselves. It's all going away in every country apart from our own, and I think it will go away in our own as well. But, you know, in the meantime, what redress do the parents of those kids have? You know,
I mean, I agree with what you wrote, Rod. You know, I mean, most of me feels that justice for those kids, don't forget there are thousands, you know, whose abusers and rapists didn't get nicked. They're still out there. A lot of people think that this rape gang culture is still prospering, you know, in 50, 60 towns across Britain. Yeah. So a lot of me thinks that, well, you know, a public inquiry, you know, would at least perhaps get them some kind of justice. But my problem with public inquiries is they never achieve anything, ever.
Well, they do. You're being very unkind. They achieve something when they're held 50 years after the events have taken place and everyone's dead. Yeah. That's when they really do achieve something. But you know what I do? I'd deport them all now that they were born in this country. Yeah, but come on. These are people from, by and large, Pakistan, sometimes Afghanistan. That is the country to which from which they have been inculcated in the way of life. Clear off back there. And if you think that's harsh, I spoke to the leader of a Muslim organisation, a very big Muslim organisation and a very decent bloke. And I said, what would you do about them? And he said, I would hang them all, every single one. You know?
Yeah, I'd go along with that. So now the other action I'd like to see, I mean, you know, it's a long shot, but this is the action I genuinely would like to see that I do think would bring justice to the thousands of victims, the many thousands of victims. The scale of this scandal is extraordinary.
It is extraordinary.
And it's this, that we go through every copper, every teacher, every local council, every social worker, every politician that turned their backs because they were worried about being accused of being Islamophobic, and we prosecute them, put them behind bars.
I would do that. I would also, you know, extend it. And every hospital administrator who has made a political decision to allow a transgender people onto a female ward, and a rape takes place, which has happened a few times, should be in prison. You know, they ought to be accountable for their stupidity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we're really sort of talking about this sort of death of wokery, but it is clinging on for dear life to too large an extent still in this country. But
and can I say one more thing on the issue, Kev? Yeah. Which is, this isn't about Muslims. Now, there is unquestionably a link between the fact that these guys were from an Islamic background and Pakistan, but most Muslims are not like that. You know, those aren't the people I'm angry with. It is always the case, and I get called Islamophobic, and I'm not at all. It is always the case that it is the stupid white liberals who are to blame. It is always the case.
Yes. Well, again, I couldn't agree with you more. Rod, when we come back, we're going to talk about the two people who on the front of the Daily Mail were described as lame ducks. They are Rachel from Accounts Reeves and, of course, Tulip Sadiq, one of whom is no longer a lame duck. She is a dead duck. We'll talk about those two losers after these messages.
Being deluded and completely out of touch with the reality. And I suspect maybe it's the latter.
Yeah.
And I'm just being a bit too generous, as is my way. But I have no confidence, frankly, that any of them on the front bench have any idea about how to actually make money, grow things, and create motivation for people to take risks, to be entrepreneurs. I think they're absolutely clueless. And whether it's her or if she was replaced with anybody, I have no confidence that anybody else knows what they're doing either.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still talking to columnist and Times Radio presenter Rod Liddle. Hello, Rod, again. Let's talk about Tulip Sadiq first. I think that this alleged corruption scandal that she's been at the centre of, quite embarrassing for somebody who's supposed to be the government's anti-corruption minister, at least gave most of the population the chance to find out who the hell she is. I, of course, already knew because I have the honour to have her as my local MP. She's
you lucky man.
Yeah, aren't I just? Well, she's gone, and I don't think it really matters that much. But let's talk about Rachel from Accounts. Now, should AI fan Keir Starmer sack Rachel. He says he's not going to. For a little bit, for just a brief moment yesterday, he had the zeitgeist, he had the support of the nation, asked, will Rachel Reeves still be your Chancellor at the end of your administration? He refused to answer. We go, oh, maybe he's going to get rid of her. Then an hour later, he released a statement saying she will last for this entire government. So he lost the nation once again. But I still don't think that guarantees her safety. Should he get rid of her?
It depends what you mean. Yes, I mean, in terms of if we want the economy to work, yes, I think absolutely. If, however, the government is to survive, then no. I think losing Rachel Reeves will be a pretty mortal blow to Starmer, and that's why he hasn't done it. The problem all goes back to, and it's quite interesting that, you know, we remember Kwasi Kwarteng's September 22 budget, which wrecked the country. This one's a kind of slow burner, isn't it? It started off by simply appalling people, but has grown into a kind of snowball of diarrhea, which the entire world markets hate. The economy doesn't like, our manufacturers don't like it, the people don't like it, the pensioners don't like it. It's every bit as damaging to our economy as Kwarteng's was, and for different reasons. And they've got themselves into this problem because of their absolute aversion to telling the truth, which was evident during the election campaign. You know, that they will not tell the truth. What they should have said was, we intend to put up taxes. We probably will have to put up taxes. We know that will hurt some people, but we think it's the right thing to do. And they clearly do think it's the right thing to do, but they couldn't say it. They wanted to lie instead. And so they put up taxes the backhand way through national insurance and various other devices. And that's made manufacturing in Britain, it's made our small businesses bankrupt, you know, some of them. So it's a fantastically useless budget.
Is she just not very good at numbers? Is she just not very good at being an accountant, being the nation's top accountant? Or is she sort of driven by a kind of socialist ideology? Or both?
It's lying again, because we all thought, and we were all told, that she was a very, very competent economist indeed. And not only that, but that she was second best at chess in her entire county. And then we find out a little bit later that she hadn't been working as an economist at all. She'd been opening the Cocoa Pops packets in the spare room or whatever it was.
In the call centre.
In the call centre, yeah, in the call centre. And that she wasn't the second best at chess, but the 23rd.
Do you want to know that also, Rod? She wasn't even the best chess player in her house. Her sister was better than her.
Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. And so you've got all these things, and it's in the gap between what the lies that we were told about how brilliant she was and how she actually is. She's about as capable with money as I am, Kevin. You know, I wouldn't hold out much hope for myself. You know, she is. We were fed a lie once again. You know, we will disagree over this, mate. I'm sure we will. But I would have John McDonnell at the Treasury. You know, there is a man who knows his numbers, knows his figures, and tells the truth. Yeah. Now, he may be a bit left wing for your liking. He's probably a bit left wing for my liking, though not by much. But at least there's a competence and an honesty there.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, it's like when Mick Lynch retired the other day, and all the right-wingers piled in on him, and I thought to myself, well, look, I don't agree with Mick, I don't agree with that kind of trades unionism, but he was dedicated to his job, and he was damn good at it. I've got no problem with people I don't agree with doing their job well. I don't agree with Rachel Reeves, but she doesn't do her job well.
And this is yeah, well, but this is a problem throughout the Labour cabinet. You know, I mean, one still holds out a bit of hope for Wes Streeting, so long as he keeps his trap shut about stuff about which he is just so far wide of the mark, such as, for example, having a go at Ed Miliband for not bombing the Syrians in 2012. I mean, Miliband, it's possibly the only good thing Miliband's ever done was not bomb the Syrians. There's Bridget Phillipson at Education.
She's terrifying.
She is terrifying. The woman with 2 official birthdays.
Neither of which she pays for herself, yeah.
Neither of which she pays for herself. It is remarkable that what seemed to be a reasonably competent front bench in May 2024 is now revealed to be kind of just hopeless beyond one's wildest expectations. And it makes you yearn for Rishi. I have never in my life yearned for Rishi, but I do a little bit now. And this all plays massively into Reform's hands, I would have thought. Nigel Farage, who is competent, he is competent, will be looking at this and laughing his head off.
Yeah, and a few final words about our undear leader, Keir Starmer. He made a speech about AI yesterday. I'll grant him this, he can probably spell AI, but beyond that, I don't think he knows what he's talking about. This is Tony Blair, by the way. Tony Blair's obsessed with AI opening up a golden future for Britain. So all this is Keir Starmer parroting Blair, but I don't think he knows what he's talking about.
No, because many problems I had with Tony Blair, sorry, that was a bit Yoda-ish, wasn't it? I had many problems with Tony Blair, but at least there was a seriousness and an intellect there. I don't think there is with Sir Keir. I think there's a kind of empty paper bag with some crumbs of a steak bake at the bottom. It's just, and to be talking about AI, is playing into the hands of people who think he's a moron, which would include, of course, Elon Musk, who knows a little bit about AI. Incidentally, did you enjoy Elon Musk's description of Ed Davey?
I loved it. You see, this is that he was a snivelling cretin.
It cheered me up so much I can't express it.
Somebody said to me, that's disgusting. I said, more to the point, it's accurate.
Absolutely.
And this is what I love about Elon Musk's intervention into British politics, into foreign politics, and in people like Donald Trump as well, because what is discombobulating the Keir Starmers and the Tony Blairs and the political traditionalists of this world is neither Elon Musk nor Donald Trump play the political game. They tell it like it is, and this is completely rattling the political class all over the world, and I love it. Yeah.
But you're absolutely right, and it does come back to that central fact that the reason that Labour is in the mess it's in, aside from the fact that, Rachel Reeves clearly can't add up, but the real reason they're in this mess is that they lied. They dissembled and lied, and they didn't tell the truth about what they wanted to do and where the money was going to come from. And it would have been a lot. They're not the first party to have lied, but they're also so crap at it.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I dislike them because of their ineptitude at lying. Very quickly, Rod, you've got about 15 seconds. What's coming up in your show on Saturday?
Oh, we've got a slightly Teutonic tone to the programme. We're going to be looking at the new Europe. These are the parties across Europe that the BBC describes as far right, which includes people who are actually on the far left. And we've got one of them.
Well, listen, that sounds great stuff, Rod. I'll be tuning in. Rod Liddle on Times Radio, 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. Thank you very much. We'll be back in a second.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
I'll be taking your calls in about 30 minutes or so. 03444991000. Should Keir Starmer sack Rachel from accounts? What is Reform UK playing at? Embracing Charlie Mullins, a man who was four square behind the jab, no jab, no job. People without the vaccination should stay in their homes. All of that, real hardliner. Plus, worse than that, he's a Remainer. He's still against Brexit. I thought Reform UK were kind of in favour of Brexit. I've got lots of texts. Give me a ring if you're a Reform supporter. What do you make of all this? It certainly seems like Reform are lurching left in order to be accepted as part of the mainstream. I don't know, but let me know what you think. 03444991000. And what do you think of the workers' rights reforms instigated by the Labour Party, which could mean that you'll be banned from discussing in the pub over a pint with your mates, I don't know, trans rights, religion, you name it. They may be off the conversational menu because the staff can sue the bosses, the pub owners, the landlord, landlady, if they hear anything that they find offensive. This is an Orwellian world we are descending into. What do you think about this? You could be banned from discussing controversial issues when you go for a pint in the pub. 03444991000 on any of those issues. But for the next 30 minutes or so, really pleased to be joined in the studio. She's limped in, Republican Overseas Representative Jennifer Ewing. She's been over in California, her native California. Did your leg in playing paddle tennis?
Pickleball.
Pickleball. Well, I don't know. What is it? Is that?
There is. It's different. There's paddle, which is Paddle. Then there's padel, which is Padel.
Is there a difference apart from the spelling?
Yes, there's a different ball, there's a different court, there's different rules, there's different all sorts of things. But pickleball is all the rage in California.
Okay, well, I hope your leg gets better.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to London. Let's talk about your fabulous home country, though. Now, I want to talk first about Harry and Meghan, but more widely the Los Angeles fires and political issues surrounding that inferno. That, I mean, for me personally, you know, I used to live there. I'm kind of heartbroken. It's like I've got a lot of affection for LA. It's like watching my hometown get destroyed. I mean, it literally has been consumed by this horrible inferno that continues to this moment. First off, on a very basic level, I'll tell you what I thought. I was disgusted by Harry and Meghan turning up in the ashes of Los Angeles for what looked to me like a photo op. They've been attacked for being, they've been described as grief grifters, as disaster tourists and tragedy vultures. Justine Bateman, the very famous actress, she described them as disaster tourists and said, what the hell are they doing there? They drove 200 miles to appear in the wreckage. There they were, walking through someone else's house, sifting through the wreckage and the remnants of a domestic home, you know, hugging the victims. Now, my point about this, Jennifer, is Los Angeles is a town full of far bigger names than them.
Yep.
Now, Tom Hanks could have gone down. I don't know, Steven Spielberg, you know, all of them, or the big names could have all gone down. But why didn't they? Because it would have been crass. It would have looked ridiculous. It would have looked as if they were trying to get publicity off the back of you know, a tragedy, of the back of this cataclysm that's befallen Los Angeles, and yet there they were. They're now letting it be known through one of their favourite outlets, Page 6, the Page 6 gossip column in the New York Post, that they're very offended by what Justine Bateman said. Well, you two, if you don't want to be offended, don't do that. It was a bad look, wasn't it?
Look, okay, well, first of all, it's a free country still in the United States of America. Do whatever you like.
I'm not saying they can't do it.
Do whatever you like. However, you're right, it doesn't make sense, you know. It's not their neighborhood, it wasn't their backyard, but I think I have a theory on why they did it. There's one reason, and one reason only.
Are those the cameras?
it's
Go on.
yeah. I think it's because they're going to try to spin this, as a lot of people will try to, as this is a climate change issue. This is all about climate change. And if you recall, when people first started to turn against Harry and Meghan when they were over here, it was when they started getting really preachy about climate change. It's their favorite issue, and I think that's what they're going to try to draw attention to. Unfortunately,
it's not
for them,
climate change.
No.
I used to live there. We get these fires every year, and some of them were terrible. The difference between this fire and all the others was that this one, because of the vagaries of the wind, the Santa Ana winds, blew straight into the middle of the city.
Right.
And usually they hang around in the outskirts, in the mountains, Malibu, that kind of thing. This one, straight into the middle, and it continues apace. So that, it's nothing to do with climate change.
No, but I think that is probably going to be their spin, right? But it's so egregious what happened, and whether you want to play the blame game or get political or not, there were warnings as early as the 1st of January. Hey, the fire's coming. It's not if, it's when. So people knew, and yet, you know, the mayor still decided to go to the Ghana, you know, the sort of
on taxpayers' money, fact-finding trip.
Taxpayers'
because the people of Los Angeles could really benefit from their mayor going to Africa on a fact-finding trip. That's really useful for Los Angeles.
And look,
while it's on fire.
Right, and look, we ask very, very little of our government, but one is to do basic services like police and fire.
Here,
so what they could have done, which is what, you know, tons of firemen and tons of policemen and first responders would have been fine, is, hey, there might be a big incident the first week in January. Let's get some people, from firefighters from Colorado or from Oregon or from other places, just in case.
Yeah.
And they would have been okay.
And I don't know, maybe have some water in the fire hydrants.
Yeah,
instead of spending money painting them rainbow colours, which they did, they didn't have any water in them. There was one reservoir that's completely empty. Anyway, Mel Gibson, famous Hollywood star, he was on Fox News earlier today, and he had some advice for the governor, the U-Haul governor of California, who causes everyone to pack up and leave because he's so useless. Mel said, he was asked, what's your advice to Gavin Newsom? He said, spend less on hair gel. But my advice would be, yes, Gavin, spend less on hair gel, but also abandon all plans and ambition to be the President of the United States. You just blew it.
Well,
right?
And resigned from the governorship of California. He failed, you know. He's failed in fire safety. He's failed in homelessness. Let's not forget, we have a massive, you know, missing money from the audit to help homelessness, and it's gone up 40% since he's been in charge. So he is not good with money. And forget running for President of the United States. He should not be in charge of the 5th largest economy in the world.
Absolutely. Let's have a quick look at old Mel Gibson on Fox News. It's very short, but it's funny.
Mel, any message from you to Governor Newsom or Karen Bass tonight?
Spend less on hair gel. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, what can I say to them? Not big admirer of either, but there you go.
Karen Bass, by the way, you know, I'm not saying this in any pejorative way, but the 3 people in charge of the LAFD, the Los Angeles Fire Department, are all lesbians called Christina. They're on between $500,000 and $400 million, $500,000 and $400,000 a year each. Now, you know, I'm sure they're all very capable people, but we know why they're there. They're there because of wokery, aren't they?
Well, yeah, it's
you know, I don't want to decry them. Maybe they're brilliant at their jobs, but, you know, you can't help reflecting on why the 3 people running the LAFD, the Los Angeles Fire Department, are all lesbians, and one of them who gets about $290,000 a year. She's head of equality,
right?
And she said that the most important thing in the LAFD was diversity.
Yeah.
No. Let me explain to you what the most important thing in a fire department is. It's putting out fires. And you were ill-equipped to do so because Karen Bass, the mayor, took away $49 million of funding. So you've heard of defunding the police. Los Angeles defunded the fire department. So there are a lot of political questions there.
Well, she was another DEI win as well, because there was a pretty good Democrat that was running against her, but people said, no, you know, we've got to have the woman of color who's going to win.
Social worker.
She's a disaster. They should have gone with the other guy.
Did you see the footage? Sky News caught up with her. She just got back from Ghana at the airport, and they cornered her and said, anything you say to the people of Los Angeles. And they kept asking questions. She stood there like this.
Oh, yeah, you know, she froze.
She's the mayor.
She froze. She froze.
Well, she's been told by her PR people, don't say anything.
Of course.
Well, it was a terrible, terrible look. She looked like a sort of incompetent clerk, as you would say, as opposed to the woman running the great city of Los Angeles. That city is in incapable hands, to say the least.
Well, no, I was going to say, you just brought up Justine Bateman earlier, who is Jason Bateman's sister, you know, child actors, and she's become quite outspoken in the last few years. She's great, just common sense. She's not overly political. Of course, anybody with common sense is now considered far right. But what she said is people need to stop looking at their voting card and just picking the Democrats, right? Like, that's not how you choose a plumber. Yeah, it's not how you choose a mechanic. Right. Just like, who's the best? And if you don't know, ask your friends, right? Or read some reviews, but just stop voting down ballot Democrat because you live in California.
Yeah, and Justine and Mel Gibson and others of that ilk have pointed out that the trouble with these woke Democrats in so many cities, but particularly California, is that they do not attend to the basics. You know, water in fire hydrants, water in reservoirs, preparation for this kind of disaster. It happens every year. They do not attend to the basics. They are incompetent. They're incompetent.
Kevin, do you know what they were doing? Well, this preparation should have been going on a few days ago. They had a special state assembly organizing on how to sue President-elect Trump for the, you know, so he can't sort of get involved with illegal immigrants. That is what they were doing when they should have been looking after how to prepare for this disaster.
President Trump, when that happens, will go through that lot like a dose of salt. Let's go back to Harry and Meghan, which I think is interesting in their wokery. They have torn into Mark Zuckerberg, the head of Meta, Facebook, as it previously was, over Mark's decision to sort of go with the Trumpian flow and get rid of all the fact checkers, the social media fact checkers on his sites, Meta, as it's now called, Facebook, Instagram, and indeed WhatsApp. So he said, well, we'll get rid of those because, frankly, they're left-wing, they're biased, and they censor free speech. This is Harry and Meghan's response, his statement issued yesterday. Bear with me. In an already confusing and, in many instances, intentionally disruptive information environment, God, the way that woman speaks.
Word salad.
This is the English language according to Meghan Markle. I'll start that again. See if you can keep up. It's a load of old psychobabble claptrap, but you'll get the point. In an already confusing and in many instances intentionally disruptive information environment, Meta has shown their words and commitments have very little meaning or integrity, as they announce these changes undoubtedly responding to political wins. They once again abandon public safety in favour of profit, chaos and control. The company's decision to roll back protections is so far away from its stated values and commitments to its users, including the parents and families calling for change around the globe, that it is now deeply deceptive. We urge Meta to reconsider and reinstate policies to protect all users. Who cares what you think? Who are you? You're just a couple of grifters up in Montecito. I mean, talk about entitled.
Well, I guess if I was to be generous, I would say I do agree that Mark Zuckerberg probably is blowing with the wind in this case, right?
Hey.
Like, he realizes where the power lies.
But the outcome is good.
Yes, the outcome is good. However, where were these two in 2020 when we now know that the two most censored events in modern American history were the 2020 U.S. election and COVID-19, right? Where Mark Zuckerberg, as well as Twitter, before it was owned by Elon, and many other publications, have pretty much admitted, yes, we were censoring information like the Hunter Biden laptop and everything.
The laptop,
why didn't that bother them then, right? Why did this only bother them when it suits their cause,
I think we
right?
know. I think, yeah.
You know,
by the way, Meghan, you know, high and mighty, full of principles. She's so outraged by Meta, by Zuckerberg, that in order to promote her Netflix cooking show, she's gone back onto Instagram. Hey ho! The word hypocrite springs to mind. But you know, it is unbelievable, their sense of entitlement. Now, one last question I'd like to ask you about this is, do you think, see, Donald Trump, who, by the way, has praised Mark Zuckerberg to the hilt and happily accepted his $1 million donation to his inauguration celebrations.
He is a pragmatist, Donald Trump.
Sure.
Why not?
Now, he might not take kindly to this statement by the gruesome twosome from Montecito, and Harry's visa, his license to stay as a resident in America, could be at risk here.
I actually would be more fearful if Elon Musk takes notice of this, because Elon Musk is a little bit of Trump's attack dog these days. So Trump might have bigger fish to fry, especially over the next few days. But if somebody whispers in his ear, like, hey, this is what these two are saying, it might grab some attention, and then who knows, it'll go down the road of Keir Starmer or, you know, some of the other people that Elon has been paying attention to in this country.
I agree, and I think, you know, if somebody alerted Elon to the fact you'll get a lot of play if you have a go at Harry, kick Harry out, you know, then Elon will give that a go. By the way, this is a free country. We have freedom of speech. My view on Elon's intervention into British politics is, who are we to tell him not to do it? It's a freedom of speech. If he wants to get involved, actually, if he's wrong about certain facts, I think he has a tendency to go over the top. He does it deliberately. But if he's wrong, you have the right to be wrong, you know. It's all part and parcel of freedom of expression and freedom of speech. So all of you fascists who say, oh, we can't have a foreigner getting involved in our politics. No, we can. We have to. That's freedom, OK? That's my view on that. When we come back, we'll talk about how the president-elect, Donald Trump, is so lucky he won that election. Otherwise, the Democrats would have him behind bars for subverting American democracy. You know, that would be the American democracy that he just triumphed in and absolutely pummeled the useless, dozy Democrats in. They're still suffering from Trump deranged syndrome, and it's hilarious to behold. We'll talk about that after this break. Stay where you are.
Yeah, I think it's easy often to blame tourists and foreigners. I mean, 27,000 people is not enough to swing an entire housing market. Let's face it. I do worry that you know, there are often these protests against over-tourism in Spain. We've seen them in Barcelona. We saw them in the Canary Islands last year. There is a bit of a danger where, you know, are they cutting off the nose to spite the face a little bit? Spain is going to overtake soon France as the world's #1 tourist destination. Tourists bring in money.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still from the Republican Overseas Organisation here in London, Jennifer Ewing. She's in the studio. Now, let's talk about Trump derangement syndrome. I think this is what this story is all about. Today, the Democrats, as it were, kind of released Jack Smith, his special counsel, who was commissioned to investigate Donald Trump in terms of the alleged insurrectional riot on January the 6th, 2020, the assault on Capitol Hill and all that, as part of a conspiracy to defraud the US, insurrect and subvert American democracy and all that. So they released his report today, and they're basically saying, well, if Trump didn't win the election, we'd have definitely had him behind bars, we'd have convicted him. I mean, it's like, why are you saying this? Do you really think somehow it's going to undermine the inauguration next week? Because it's not. And secondly, stop humiliating yourselves. This is what you did throughout the election campaign, throughout the 2 years leading up to the election. You thought that by trash-talking Donald Trump and lawfaring him, you would somehow destroy his chances of becoming the president, the next president. How did that go for you? I mean, it's ridiculous. Give it up.
Yeah, but I think they're so far, you know, beholden to this, they don't know how to stop. I mean, the only reason they went after him to begin with is because he announced he was running for president again back in, you know, November 2022, and then all the indictments.
And they basically went, we'll show him.
We'll show him. And then they realized, you know what? This is a good idea. The more we go after him, the more his base gets excited. But so we'll let him be the GOP nominee. Yeah. But there's no way he can win a general. So their plan won. He became the GOP nominee. There are a lot of people, including on Republicans, who thought, great, we got him. Maybe he can't win. But there he goes, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, he's winning. Because the more and more they did this,
but he's a convicted felon.
Well,
they don't care.
People did not think January 6th was important as they said it was. They did not think these hush money cases, which are basically, you know, putting something into an Excel spreadsheet were important. And, you know, some accusation, and I'm not belittling any assault on women, but some accusation in a Bergdorf Goodman, department store that may or may not have happened, 30 years ago. People did not think that was a good enough reason to stop it.
What they recognised, Jennifer, was that this was a concerted lawfare campaign by the Democrats to attack Trump on every level, to undermine him and make him implausible as a potential president. What the stupid idiots in the Democrat Party didn't calculate, didn't realise, is that with every new assault on Donald Trump, they made him more popular. And by the way, when he started getting nearly assassinated, that, I think, began to seal the deal. Even after that, even after he was so nearly killed, at that rally, the Democrats started saying, "Oh well, you know, he was never going to be killed. Never mind, just put that to the back." Well, I think Americans all over the country took that very seriously, and it elevated Mr. Trump to hero level.
Absolutely, it was that people were insulted by this whole lawfare thing that you just mentioned. But number two, Trump was very, very consistent with regards to his policies, which were exactly what the United States people told him that they wanted, which is control inflation and the economy, and number two, control the crisis we have at the southern border. Over and over and over again, that's what the voters said they wanted, and that's what he ran on, and he won. So as many times as Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or any of these other talking heads tried to say, oh, we care about climate change, we care about trans issues, we care about, you know, democracy, and somebody's Hitler, it's like, no, we don't. We care about gas and groceries. And by the way, shut the border.
Yeah, indeed. Now, our friend Greg Swenson, the chairman of the Republican Overseas here, he always said it was going to be close, and I always said it's not going to be close.
Yeah, you always did say that.
I said Trump's going to walk it, and I was right.
You were right. I hope you guys bet something serious on that.
Well, we sort of bet a few drinks, and we had them. So Donald Trump responded by calling Jack Smith a lame-brained prosecutor who was unable to get his case tried before the election. Let me tell you what I think was the key moment in that election campaign. Of course, the assassination attempt was very important, but one of the key moments, let me put it this way, it was when, during the TV debate, you know, his famous moment, which I loved, where he goes, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, they're eating the pets of the people who live there. And that was referring to Springfield, Ohio, which had suddenly imposed on it about 30,000 Haitian migrants, who indeed actually were raiding the park and taking geese and ducks. Whether or not they were eating dogs or cats is another issue. Now, when he said that, Kamala Harris, typical Democrat, she went, oh, it's ridiculous. Oh, look at this fool. Look at what he's saying. And all across America, people are going, they're eating the dogs? They're eating the cats? My God, I'm voting Trump.
Well,
she just didn't get it, did she?
Not only did she not get it, and let's say whether it happened, whether it didn't happen, I truly believe, and maybe I'll lose credibility, I believe it did happen in certain cases, right? I really do. But that aside, that song went viral, not only in the United States, all over every single nightclub, all over Asia, all over Europe. It went nuts. And all of a sudden, Trump had this cool factor. Then you had the McDonald's. Then you had the garbage truck. Then you had the, like, this is just a normal dude. And then people are like, and he's kind of funny, you know?
He lost
the mean-spiritedness that he had maybe during the first couple campaigns. So I think from there it was...
I think that you're right. You're right about that. And by the way, to go back to eating the dogs and the cats in Springfield, Ohio, you know, those allegations didn't come from nowhere. Now, I don't know whether or not it happened, but I do know this. The City Hall of Springfield denied. You know, they wouldn't they? You want to see, it's most cities, they're not going to go, yeah, we've got all these people that keep eating domestic pets. They would never do that. They denied that this was going on. And then the police department there, this quote, I quote, there have been no credible reports.
There you go, yes.
So what do they mean by credible? So what they actually mean is there were reports. But they decided they weren't credible. Let me tell you, eating the dogs and eating the cats, that was the key moment. That's when I think he won it and she lost it.
No, I think you're right. And let's say whether, again, they did, they didn't, it doesn't matter. Why wasn't somebody, especially the media, especially the politicians, going, wow, why is this happening? You know, wow, this town of Springfield, Ohio, does feel overrun. It's a very small town. It was overrun with over 30,000. Okay, fine, they had a program to come in legally, but like, let's look into this. Are the people, the citizens of our country, are not happy about something, so why don't we ask more questions rather than vilify them?
Well, Kamala Harris was indicative of all the sort of liberal elite who all went, oh, how ridiculous, look what he's saying now. And all the media, oh, we're not going to investigate that, that's ridiculous. If I was over there, I'd have gone straight there. And I'd have stood up the fact that dogs and cats were being eaten. At least I would have tried, but the media didn't. And that's the point about Trump. You know, whether or not dogs were being eaten or cats were being eaten, he knew, he was clever, he knew that that would strike a chord with the American people, and that cackling idiot next to him did not know.
Well, do you know how many just elitist snobs said, I can't believe people in America are going to vote for Trump because of, like, the price of their eggs and the price of their gas? Like, how arrogant and how, you know, unempathetic is that?
And you will find that a lot of people do vote on those bases.
Yes, they do, and they did, and that's how he won.
Don't forget Kamala, she campaigned on the price of your groceries as well, but
with caps, with Marxist caps.
Yes, but I don't suppose we'll ever hear from her again. Let's hope not. Anyway, one last question, Jennifer. I mean, it's the inauguration next week. I mean, first of all, tell me what you expect from the first year of Trump's presidency. I mean, I can see he's really going to wage war on wokery, which is good. No more of these bizarre, mad diktats. You know, that bloke with a beard wearing a dress is a woman. No, it's not. It's a bloke in a beard wearing a dress. No more of that nonsense. That's one thing. That will be quite, not easy, but that will be a fairly easy thing to tackle. Do you think he's going to have trouble with these mass deportations that he's promised? Because I do.
So I do not, because there's enough low-hanging fruit, i.e. people that we know are already have been asked to report themselves because they've committed a crime, they're here illegally, they've overstayed, so they're going to start there, right? But what, to your point of, is it going to be difficult? Yes. On certain channels, on certain radios, are you going to see, oh my gosh, Trump broke into a house and stole somebody's abuela who has been, you know, working as a cleaning lady for the last 25 years and never broken the law? Yes, of course you're going to see stories like that. That's not what's going to happen. Tom Homan, who's the border czar, who has done the job for 6 different presidents. He's been a border sort of agent for this, so he gets the job. He's serious, and the most important thing, Kevin, that nobody talks about, we weren't allowed to talk about it during Trump and Harris, is there's over 300,000 migrant children who have gone missing into the United States. That is a big deal, and that is a tragedy, and so no, there's going to be support behind him to
and just in case anybody thinks that, you know, we're being far-right extremists here, I mean, thousands of people are dying trying to get across that border. It's officially under Joe Biden, 4 years under Joe Biden, 10 million people came across the border illegally, and potentially Donald Trump always maintained that the real figure was nearer 20 million. So they need to close that border for humanitarian reasons. And interesting what you say, Jennifer, and I think you're probably right, that there will be enough low-hanging migrant fruit for him, for Trump to at least give the impression that he's getting on with it. He's getting rid of them. As soon as you start seeing, say, 1,000 getting deported, that'll be a good look for him.
Well, and we know that Trump had a higher amount of Hispanic people vote for him than even George W. Bush. Why do you think that is?
A lot of people, black people.
They came here legally, right? They're multi-generation of, let's say, Mexican families who are small business owners, who are often Catholic, who are family people, who are law-abiding, and whose schools and neighborhoods are the ones that are getting harmed by this, the illegal immigration. So,
he had huge support from the Latino community and from the black community.
Absolutely.
Far more than Kamala Harris ever did. And you see, you will never appeal to people like that by saying, here's my plan. We're going to get taxpayers to fund trans prisoners who want to change gender while they're behind bars. That is the sort of thing that killed the Democrats. And if they don't learn that claptrap will never succeed in the great country of America, then they're finished forever. And I hope they are. Jennifer, great to have you on board. Thank you so much. Jennifer Ewan from the Republican Overseas Organisation. Next up, your calls. 0344 499 1000. Get on the blower. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm going to go to the phones in just a second. I'll read you. I asked you earlier if you're a Reform UK supporter, what you feel about Reform's softening opinion about Shamima Begum, the ISIS bride terrorist, who Reform UK now seem to think should come back to this country and serve a prison sentence in a high-security jail. I say she should stay in Syria, rot in hell for all I care. I don't see why they would want her back, why they think that's better for Britain. And also that Charlie Mullins, decent guy, nice guy actually, but holds opinions that I don't agree with. He was very much a hardline, get the jab or you can't have a job, get the jab or you can't go out. He was very COVID fundamental. Also, he's a Remainer. He still opposes Brexit. So I asked you what you thought about Charlie Mullins being apparently asked by Nigel Farage to stand for his party. He doesn't stand for what Reform stands for, does he? Anyway, a couple of messages on this topic. Chrissy and Richard, obviously written by Chrissy, this one. Hi, Kevin. Myself and my husband are both Reform members, and we have been discussing Charlie Mullins and also Begum. And if Mullins comes to Reform or Begum comes back into the country, our membership will be withdrawn. We feel very strongly about both issues. That's Chrissy and Richard. Bob has sent me in a WhatsApp message saying, very interesting show. I joined Reform recently, but didn't know about Nigel's recent views on Europe, Shamima Begum, and also did not know that Charlie Mullins was a rampant Remoaner. It has all got me thinking about Reform now. I think a lot of people in Reform will be thinking along the same lines as Bob, Chrissy and Richard. So let's go now to Lincolnshire and talk to a friend of the show, Mark. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Kev, mate. You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right. I've got a note here saying that you're not at all surprised that Charlie Mullins has been invited into the bosom of Reform UK. I kind of am, because he doesn't seem to believe in anything that Reform UK believes in.
You're obviously not paying close enough attention to Reform, particularly Nigel Farage, are you then, mate?
Well, you mean he's coming towards the Charlie Mullins way of thinking, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said to the researcher, producer, whoever it was I spoke to, and I've said this on a couple of other shows on Talk Now over the last few months, I was all for Reform. I was out there, social media canvassing for them, along with hundreds, thousands of others. This is back in the day before Farage showed up, with Richard Tice, who I thought was far more authentic. And I quite like Richard. He's my MP. He's helping me out a bit with the doctors at the minute and stuff.
Oh, he's a great guy. He's a friend of mine. And I'm a great admirer of Nigel Farage, but something, I remain sort of neutral when it comes to party membership or supporting any particular party, but Reform UK stand for a lot of things that I believe in. But I just detect that they seem to be moving left. In other words, in their enthusiasm for embracing the mainstream, to be seen as one of the big parties, they seem to be lurching leftwards, I guess, to be what they think more appealing to a bigger number of people.
Well, the thing is, Kev, you mentioned the Shamima Begum thing. You've got Charlie Mullins, who should be nowhere near Reform in any capacity, really. But obviously, what I do also know about Mullins is he did donate to them. And it appears to me that your opinions or your previous or whatever, it doesn't seem to matter. If you're donating to Reform, that's absolutely fine. But if you support Tommy Robinson, which I don't particularly, I'm indifferent, but if you support him or you're overly patriotic or you've got strong opinions on, the culture of the country and the indigenous population, immigration, all that kind of stuff, perfectly rational right-wing views, then he doesn't want to know so much. They're not so interested in you. But as long as you're donating, it doesn't matter if you're a rampant Remoaner. It doesn't matter if you want to, lock people up in their houses that don't fancy having a jab.
Let me ask you this, Mark. I can see what they're doing, by becoming more centrist. They think they'll become bigger. Their membership will become bigger. We learned, of course, today that they've overtaken Labour, the Tories, and are now within 1 point of the government. So they are going places, and their membership is massive. It's overtaken the Tories. But do you think that this lurch leftwards, this, bring Shamima home, Charlie Mullins, the Remainer, can join the party, do you think it will alienate? Do you think it will make a lot of traditional Reform supporters, like the people whose messages I've just read out, do you think it will make them sort of think about their membership, perhaps leave?
I absolutely do think that. The people I talk to online and what have you, the people that were there, as I say, before the election, mate, that were doing all the stuff that I was doing, the same, like, say, the hundreds, thousands of us, they're all starting to come round to that idea. I went off the ball as soon as he gave the interview about the mass deportations and his opinions on that. I saw exactly where he was going, that he was essentially turning himself into a centrist Tory. That's how it came at the time, and all he's done since then is confirm that suspicion.
Yeah, they sound more and more like Labour or the Tories. They sound more and more. To some extent, I can see what they're playing at. They sound like one of the mainstream parties. My problem, or I would suggest a lot of Reform UK members' problem, is that they don't want Reform UK to be like the other mainstream parties. So I think
absolutely. Rupert Lowe's the only one, Kev, that's doing anything that we thought, if we got lucky enough to get Reform MPs, prior to the election, I think the general feeling among the base was that we wanted them in there kicking up a ruckus, disrupting things.
Disrupting, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you had Rupert Lowe, he's the only one that's been, kicking, back and demanding data and all the kind of stuff like that. And then last week as well, because I'm guessing no real fault of Rupert Lowe, 'cause he's not really that personality. It's more like somebody Farage or the Lee Andersons that should be doing the following kind of thing, which is, Rupert Lowe was in the Commons last week, and he was talking about the grooming gang thing. And one of the, I think it was a female Labour MP, I think it was. From the language he was using, the way he was referring to, Pakistani rape gangs and all this kind of thing. And he was detailing some of the things, from the transcripts, not the really horrible stuff. But he was going on about stuff like that, and she kind of pipes up, and we should be very careful about the language we use.
Don't. I never listen to politicians telling me to be careful about the language I use. The language I use about the rape gangs is they were Pakistani Muslims, and anybody who wants to deflect from that is suffering from exactly the syndrome that allowed them to rape thousands of girls in the first place, that enabled them. In other words, too scared to call them what they are, Pakistani Muslims, and therefore not be accused of being racist or Islamophobic. That nonsense has to stop. I totally agree with you. Mark, I've got to go now, but very interesting conversation. Thank you for ringing. Always good to talk to you. Mark in Lincolnshire. Sorry to Michael in Birmingham. We didn't get through to you, or we didn't get round to talking to you then, but we will later in the show. More of your calls at about 9:20, so stay tuned for that. 0344 499 1000. When we come back, the drug treatment centres that aren't allowed to talk about getting clean from drugs, to talk about sobriety, aren't allowed to use any of those terms because it might be inconsiderate towards the junkies and the alkies. How are you going to help them if you can't use the right language? Wokery not only gone mad, wokery gone dangerously mad. That will medically affect the experts and the doctors' ability to help the people. Unbelievable. That next, 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Well, I mean, I think, if anything, I think Kemi Badenoch's the person that should be taking this the most seriously of anyone. I mean, I think if this poll shows anything other than the massive growth of reform, it just shows that people are still totally not interested in the Tories. I mean, since the election, I think lots of people thought that post-election, Labour would come in and then people say, oh no, actually, I'm going to go back to the Tories, this is worse. But it just shows that people are so put off by the last 14 years of their governing that is still not an appealing choice for people.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Let's talk about the madness of wokery, when wokery goes way over the top. Now, if you go to Hampshire or the Isle of Wight right now, and you happen to be, you know, either a drug addict or an alcoholic who needs help, treatment centres to help you get off drugs, get off the booze. The staff, the treatment staff, the experts, the doctors, the people who help addicts, the people who help alcoholics have been banned from using terms like get clean or get sober. They're not allowed to say drug-free or alcoholic because apparently this terminology is not considerate enough to the people they're trying to help. So in other words, they're banned from using the language that they need to use, the relevant language that they need to use to help the addicts and the boozers. I mean, this is insane. Let's talk to, from the New Culture Forum, Senior Fellow there, Philip Kisley. Welcome again, Philip. Thanks for joining us. This is the kind of thing that Donald Trump will stamp out in America. We're going to lag behind, but we've really got to start thinking about this, because this isn't only laughable. This isn't only funny, because it sort of is. This is dangerous. People could die because of this, because the experts, the doctors who help very bad alcoholics, very bad drug addicts, will not be allowed to use the terminology that will help them. It's just beggars belief, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, first of all, hello, Kevin. It's great to see you again. It really is. It's dangerous. I think the one thing that addicts, alcoholics, drug addicts, whatever, the one thing that they really need is honesty, because they have spent their lives lying to themselves, lying to everybody else, and they need that sense of clarity. Now, if the people who are there to help them will not be honest with them, frankly, they've got no chance. You know, this isn't euphemism, will do no good. As many of us know who've dealt with addicts or have had experience of addicts, then there's always usually a kind of rock bottom that people hit, and there's a sense of, you know, looking into the abyss, facing yourself in the mirror, facing your demons. And once you're able to do that, once you're able to face the truth, then you can walk away from your addiction and you can begin to get better. But if people are saying, oh, you know, this is grape juice, no, it's not. It's potent red wine. You're drinking 5 bottles a day. It's killing you. You're an alcoholic. You need that clarity to be able to cope. You need that clarity to be able to go forward. But I think it's something broader, and you've framed this as woke language, and that's precisely what it is. We've seen over the last 10, 20 years this attempt to change our value system and to change who and what we are, actually. And the assault on language is very much part of that. And you talked about how dangerous this kind of stuff is. Yes, it is in that clinical setting, but it's also dangerous in a social setting as well. I mean, the obvious example is pronouns. When everybody started using pronouns 7 or 8 years ago, and you weren't allowed to kind of push back on it because you were transphobic. You had men describing themselves as women, and in nothing flat from that pronoun moment, we had male rapists in female prisons.
Exactly. You know? It's Orwellian, and it's dangerous. So the treatment centres in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight were asked not to use phrases drug-free, mentally ill or alcoholic. Instead, they want use the term substance abuse. I'm sorry, they don't want to use the term substance abuse. That has to be replaced by non-prescribed use. Now, this is an 11-page guide to the staff there, and it's called It's called the Person First Language Guide. Nasty bit of language there. It's being conscious about the words we use is not about being politically correct. It is about acknowledging that language matters and is an important part of our practice. Yes, language does matter. Use the right language. There is no point in going up to a sort of hopeless heroin junkie and saying, tell us all about your non-prescribed use. He probably won't even know what you mean. And it is about political correctness, isn't it?
Yes, it really is. I mean, everything they say there, it's the opposite. This is Orwellian doublespeak, you know. And we've had this for a long, long time. I remember beginning my career as a university lecturer, 25 plus years ago, and then people laughed at it. But it was the beginning of this sinister type stuff. They tried to ban the word fail, so you weren't going to fail.
What was your second exam?
You weren't going to fail your exam.
How did you get on? How did I get on in the exam? You didn't do too well. Well, did I fail? No, I'm not going to say that.
there was a particular phrase that we had to use, and that was deferred success.
You're joking. You're joking. But that presupposes that there will be success in the future. So you can't guarantee that. So it's not accurate, is it?
Not accurate, and this is the whole point. If we are abusing language in this way, not only can we not communicate with each other, we can't function as a society. And the point is that they want to change society. So I'll give you another example, just as stupid. A few weeks ago, it was 2 or 3 months ago, some universities, top universities, came out and said, oh, well, we don't want staff and students to use the words mum and dad. Okay, because some people don't have mums and dads, and also people from queer families will not be included. Now, actually, what's going on there? They're not being nice. They're not being inclusive. What they're doing is pushing away, decentering, it's called, the heterosexual norm.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. That's what it's all. It's an attack on tradition. This nonsense is an attack on tradition. It's to try to destabilise what this country's all about. It's politically motivated, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's all dialogue. It's all ideological. I mean, the thing is, though, you can't diagnose a problem if you won't identify the problem, and if you don't have the vocabulary to describe what it is. That's what's really frightening, and this takes away our autonomy in a way, our ability to be able to kind of describe perfectly what we are doing. And there's a sense of Big Brother is what I keep coming back to, this Orwellian. Is that, isn't it? It's, it's Big Brother knows best, Starmer knows best, the government knows best, this left-wing...
This is a dystopian disaster. I've got to go now, Philip. What was that? What was your term for failure? Deferred success, was that it?
Deferred success, Kevin, yes.
It's just unbelievable. Philip, great to talk to you. Come on again soon. Philip Kisley, their Senior Fellow at the New Cultural Forum. When we come back, we'll be talking about Nicola Sturgeon and the end of her marriage up in Scotland. Stay tuned for that.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Taking your calls in about 20 minutes or so, and then you can have the rest of the show. The floor is all yours. So 0344 499 1000. Lots and lots of messages about what seems to be a new direction for Reform UK. A lot of people somewhat dismayed that Charlie Mullins seems to have been invited into the fold. A COVID jab fundamentalist, loved the COVID jab. We all had to get vaccinated as far as he was concerned. No jab, no job. That was his line. If you worked for Pimlico Plumbers, you couldn't work there unless you had the vaccination. So that was his approach to that. Meanwhile, he remains a Remainer, a hell of a Remoaner. Still says Brexit was a terrible idea. Now, both of those lines, particularly Brexit, I mean, is that anything to do with the Reform UK Party? I thought they stood for the opposite. I thought they were the Brexit Party. And that getting out of Europe was what they were all about. But apparently they're willing to welcome into the fold some guy who's totally against Brexit. 0344 499 1000. Also, should Keir Starmer sack Rachel Reeves? Rachel from Accounts, she's a terrible chancellor, obviously. Should he sack her? 0344 499 1000. And what do you make of the Labour Party's reforms to workers' rights that could mean that you're banned from talking about controversial topics in your local pub? Because if you start banging on about trans rights or religion or something that maybe might offend the barmaid or the barman or the bar gender-neutral person, then they could sue their bosses for being offended. Same at football matches. Football clubs could be sued by fans if the fans, I don't know, start shouting about the ref being blind, as they usually do. You know, people of partially sighted or blind people could sue the club to say they were offended. I mean, is it just me, or is this all a bit Orwellian, a bit sinister? 0344 499 1000. Now, let's go north of the border now. Interesting events the last couple of days. Yesterday, Nicola Sturgeon, Queen of Scots, former First Minister, former ruler of all she surveyed up there in Scotland, she announced the end of her marriage to Peter Murrell. Peter Murrell was the Scottish National Party's chief executive, the man with his hand on the purse strings, while Nicola, there they are, him in his kilt, they're both wearing skirts. No, it's a kilt, of course, and she's not wearing a skirt. I know, she's wearing a dress. I'm very hip to all these fashionable nuances. But she's splitting from him. He still faces soon an embezzlement trial. He's charged with embezzling, I think, as much as £600,000 from the SNP. She was arrested as well for that and grilled, I think, for a best part of a day by cops. We don't know what's happening with her. But Murrell will soon be in court for this. And you wonder why she's doing this. Could it be to sort of distance herself from this guy when events might become a bit embarrassing in terms of what went on when they were running the SNP? They really were the first couple of Scotland, the King and Queen of Scotland. What they said went. Well, that's all fallen apart now. She's gone. The SNP, it's still the government, but John Swinney, the boss of the party now, is having a tough time. The Tories are creeping up on them. Labour doing well. Their supremacy up there in Scotland is a thing of the past. So interesting times up there. Let's talk to a guy who knows about all of this stuff probably more than anybody alive. He is the brilliant political correspondent of the Sunday Times, John Boothman. Welcome, John.
How are you doing, Kevin?
Good to have you on board. Well, first of all, let's talk about the story that's making the headlines all over the country, the end of the marriage of Nicola Sturgeon and Peter Murrell. I don't want to go into the personal details, but do you detect that with Peter Murrell's trial for embezzlement from the SNP coming up, that Nicola would rather distance herself from this guy while he goes through the very public ordeal of a court case?
Look, there's a lot of speculation of that nature. We don't actually know yet whether Peter Murrell is going to be on trial. What's happened to him is he's been charged. He was charged, last April, May. We're waiting for the Crown Office to decide whether it's in the public interest for there to be a trial and to decide what the next moves are. Equally, we're also waiting to see what happens with Nicola Sturgeon. She was arrested and then not just released without charge. Oh, goodness, what are we talking about? June 2023. So we don't know what's happening in that. All we know is that she's still under investigation. She's under investigation. The former treasurer of the party, Colin Beattie, who's a member of the Scottish Party, the SNP and the Scottish Parliament, is still under investigation. But we don't know what's happening next with them. So there's a lot of stuff we don't know. What we certainly do know is that this is taking an awful long time, and that's caused a great deal of puzzlement to not just commentators, but, everyone in Scotland who wants to know what's going to happen with these people. You're right, this investigation, 11 policemen involved, policemen, policewomen involved in that started in July 2021. The investigation goes on. As I say, we're waiting on the Crown Office to decide what happens with Murrell, who's been charged now. It wasn't any surprise to most people in the political firmament, that announcement yesterday. None of Nicola Sturgeon's friends and allies were surprised by it, but it's happened. As you rightly said, this was a couple who were at the height of the political powers, probably in 2015. She, the First Minister of Scotland, the election, a general election in 2015, returned 56 SNP MPs. He ran that election because he was the chief executive of the SNP and a bit of a magician in terms of, running their election machine. They won 56 seats. Labour won 1, the Tories won 1, and the Liberal Democrats won 1. And what happened after that was kind of went all downhill after that. They had that fundraising campaign to raise money for a second independence referendum. It raised more than £600,000. It got to that position, as I said earlier, in July 2021, then the police ordered an investigation after complaints about the whereabouts of that money. It played out, as we know. Who can forget a couple of years ago, I think what we're talking about, when in 2023, when we had that big blue tent in the garden, we had the camper van being found at Peter Murrell's mother-in-law's house. One of the questions people were jokingly asking yesterday is, if there's going to be a divorce, who gets custody of the camper van? But that was a bit of a joke.
Yeah, which I think was worth 110 grand or something, wasn't it? Well, let me ask you this, John. I'm not au fait with the way the legal system works up there. And the wheels of justice throughout the country, down here as well as up there, are run notoriously slowly. But what is going on with Murrell? Down here, you get charged, you're going to court. Come what may. You seem to say that maybe he might not go to court. And why has it taken, after he was charged, what did you say, how long ago was that, 8 months ago or something?
Yes, last May he was charged, and basically what happened was a file went to the Crown Office, right? Prosecutors are looking at that file to decide what to do next. They need to decide, legally they need to decide, one, has a crime been committed, right? Having looked at that.
Well, if he's been charged, though, John.
He's been charged by the police, but the Crown Office have to decide, has a crime been committed, the Crown Office also has to decide, is the person who is being accused of that crime, is that the person who is liable to have done it? And they have to decide, is it in the public interest that this goes to court? And since then, it's been sitting on the desk of the prosecutors at the Crown Office, and there's been nothing. There are now questions being raised by prominent KCs in Scotland, prominent King's Councils, as to whether Peter Murrell can actually have a fair trial, because this has gone on so long and his human rights may have been breached.
Of course. Human rights, eh? What about Nicola then? I mean, you know, since this case seems to be progressing so slowly, presumably she's far from off the hook yet. I mean, she could still get charged and could still end up in court. So we're waiting for some kind of verdict on her as well.
So what happened with Nicola? Let's take you back in February 2023. Right, let me get the dates right. February 2023, she resigned as First Minister. Basically, in June of the same year, she was arrested, questioned for 7 hours by the police. She was released without charge. She continues, of course, to protest her innocence. But ever since then, she's continued to be under investigation as part of this Operation Branchform. And whenever you go to the police or the Crown Office, they repeat the same statement, which says she's still under investigation by the police.
Interesting. Now, I believe she's actually currently staying at a flat owned by the famous crime thriller writer Val McDermott, who's an old colleague of mine, actually. We worked together on a newspaper. So she's a great girl, old Val. So I'm sure that Nicola has a nice place to stay. But politically, there they are together. Politically, John, how is the SNP faring now? I mean, frankly, Nicola Sturgeon left it in a complete mess with her absurd wokery, you know, putting blokes, rapist males into female jails. The Scottish people just said enough. So she left them in a terrible state. Then they got Humza Useless, who plunged it into an even worse state due to this crazed wokery that I don't think strikes a chord with the famously common sense Scottish people at all. So she plunged them downhill there. John Swinney now is doing his best, but he faces a very different political landscape to what she did, and indeed Humza Yousaf. He's got the Tories are nipping at his heels, the Labour are coming up. I mean, the SNP grip on Scotland is slipping, isn't it?
Look, you're correct that Nicola Sturgeon left the party in a state. They had a disastrous 13 months under Humza Yousaf. He was a complete disaster. Then what happened was 6 weeks before the general election, Swinney took over. He tried to steady the ship, but they got absolutely hammered at that general election. They lost 39 seats. They've only got 9 seats now in the House of Commons, with Labour in the mid-30s. What's now happening, though, is the landscape, the tectonic plates are shifting again, because the disaster, the ineptitude that's been, Keir Starmer's first 6 or 7 months has led to a position where basically Anas Sarwar and Scottish Labour have gone backwards at a rate of knots, and the beneficiaries of that have been the SNP. I mean, it's terribly ironic that what's happened is that, the budget, which gave lots of extra public spending to Scotland and to the Scottish Government, has actually provided a big boost for John Swinney and has been a complete and utter disaster for Anas Sarwar. So, for example, in the latest polls, you've got the SNP at about 30-odd%, 33%, Labour in the low 20s, which is a complete reversal to what happened, really at the general election, where Labour were far ahead of the SNP. But of course, like everywhere else in the country, the people who are making the biggest gains in the opinion polls look like the Reform Party. And that's not just hitting the Conservative Party in Scotland, it's also hitting Labour as well.
That's fascinating. So Reform are a real force up there as well. They seem to be seriously on the march. Last question, John. Where is Scottish independence in all this? That seems to have taken a back seat. I would imagine John Swinney's priority is to try to, shall we say, re-persuade the Scottish people that the SNP can be a party of sensible government, because she, old Nicola, was just obsessed with independence. I don't entirely blame her for that, but at the expense of competent government and at the expense of ludicrous wokery that undermined the entire party. Presumably, Swinney's mission is to persuade the Scottish public that this is a sensible party that can govern.
A couple of things worth saying. Independence, you're right, has been in the back burner. But independence in the polls, despite the fact, as I say, the SNP has gone up and down in the polls, is actually, at the moment polling probably just above 50%. But look, it's not on the agenda at the moment, but that's what makes the election in May 2026 so critical, because if Swinney can take the SNP back into power in 2026, which would mean, by the way, that they're there until 2031, having first been elected in 2007. That in itself would be incredible, but not just that. If Starmer's government doesn't improve, if Sarwar can't win and Swinney is back in power in 2026, independence is back up the agenda in Scotland again. And that's something that I think people south of the border certainly think has gone for, well, maybe a very long time. Well, maybe not so much. And that's what people will need to watch.
Fascinating, fascinating. John, thank you so much for the time. Great to talk to you. John Boodman, the brilliant political correspondent at the Sunday Times. Read his work in the Sunday Times, sometimes the Times as well. Knows his stuff, as you can hear. Really interesting situation, though, isn't it, up north of the border? What with her marriage falling apart, the SNP's grip on power slipping faster. I didn't know what John just said, that just as they are south of the border, Reform UK are becoming a force to be reckoned with north of the border up in Scotland. I didn't know that. That is interesting. Are we undergoing some kind of revolution? I'll tell you what, the two-party system is in big trouble. I think that has been the failure of Kemi Badenoch. She kind of thought, with the Tories, we're obviously going to be the natural party of opposition. They don't seem like it. They don't make much noise. The only proper criticism we get of the government comes from Reform, the 5 Reform UK MPs. They make more noise than the Tories put together. And when people say Nigel Farage might be the next Prime Minister of Britain, who's to say that might not be the case? Kemi Badenoch needs to get a grip. She needs to do a better job than she's doing now. I think she assumes that when everybody tires of Labour, which, by the way, they already have, but she sort of thinks, oh, well, they're going to lose the next election because they're awful and everybody hates them. Starmer's useless, their policies are hopeless, the Chancellor's absolute crap. They think, well, that Labour fall, the Tories are in. But will that be the case? Fascinating times we live in, folks. Let's go to break. And after we come back, I'll read some of your messages, take your calls. You have the floor for the rest of the show. So it's 9:20 now, and you and me, we will talk. And we will read messages. We will commune until the end of the show. 0344 499 1000. Stay tuned.
I'd be able to sue my employer, or it's the other way round and someone with blue hair would be complaining because I was saying, well, of course trans women are men because that's biological truth. Now, whether or not that is a philosophical belief that is protected under law, no, it's biological reality. It shouldn't even be considered a belief. Someone could sue their employer because they overheard a conversation of people saying things they didn't agree with. What on earth has happened to this country?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
A couple of messages. This one's from Ian in Bristol. Ian says, I think Charlie Mullins has offered Farage money because I can't think of any logical reason for a pro-EU fan joining the UK's Brexit party, and if reforms start going for the centre ground, I'll cancel my membership. Bernie, he writes, 2 days ago I stopped my monthly contribution to reform over Shamima Begum. Today I emailed Nigel asking if he was having a mental breakdown in nominating that right Charlie Mullins. Well, that is a sort of window into what a lot of people seem to be saying right now. That said, in some ways a very good day for Reform UK. A new poll has revealed they've surged ahead of the Tories and are now the second most popular party in the country, 1 point behind Labour. Labour, I can't believe, is still top of the charts. They can't stay there for much longer, can they? But Reform nipping at their heels, and we just heard very popular in Scotland as well. So is Farage going to be our next Prime Minister, or is he going to lose a lot of support because of Shamima Begum, who he now seems to want back in the country, and or Charlie Mullins, asking Charlie Mullins, the Pimlico Palmer former owner, multi-millionaire, nice guy as I say, but holds opinions that I don't think are commensurate with Reform UK. He's a Remainer, hates Brexit, was an absolute COVID jab fanatic. He couldn't work for him if you didn't get a COVID injection. You would be fired. No jab, no job was his policy. So is that Brexit? Is that Reform UK? I don't think so. But anyway, let's see what some of you find out, what you think. Let's talk to Michael in Birmingham. Hello, Michael.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm all right. What do you think of Charlie Mullins being invited into the fold?
Don't rate the guy at all. Don't want him anywhere near Reform. I've never seen anything positive about him, and I saw him on Mike Graham's show. I think
this morning. Yes, this morning.
Yeah, didn't rate him then either. He didn't come across as a nice bloke to me, nor particularly bright one. So, you know, OK, he's got money, but that doesn't necessarily make you bright. I mean, I know him a bit personally. He is a nice bloke, but he's got. It doesn't look that way to me.
But he's got opinions that I don't think tally with Reform UK. I mean, this is just what he's saying. He says that Nigel Farage has asked him to stand as a candidate for Reform UK. How can that be? The guy said today on television, I still think Brexit was a terrible idea. It'd be better to get back into Europe. You know, what's that got to do with Reform UK?
Well, I mean, I'm repeating a lot of what your earlier callers and messages have said.
Yeah.
But what I will say, where I might differentiate a bit, and it's not trying to big myself up, I think I spoke to you on this show before Christmas and we kind of disagreed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I preempted Elon Musk by thinking that Nigel Farage wasn't the man for the job. And, you know, I'm not bigging myself up there. It was my genuine opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And and I could see that they were shifting to the left. Look, they were all very avuncular, all very nice, and frankly, if you're going to be on that side of the political debate, you can afford to be to the extreme. Well, not the extreme. I don't mean the extreme as in Keir Starmer's far right extreme. I mean, but you could basically look. Most people join Reform because immigration's troubling them in one way or
absolutely,
another.
Absolutely.
And they should just stick to that. I mean, that Begum woman should be nowhere near the UK, and you know, and he should be holding up Trump as a model. You know, the aggressive, no backing down. What people call him, what people call us as Reform members, and me, I've put myself forward for a Reform councillor. I'll take whatever they do, because I know one thing: if you go to the red wall seats again up north in Labour land, they will go to Reform if you say we're going to deport illegal migrants. They will go to Reform if you say when people arrive at the Channel, we're going to prosecute them as criminals and bounce them straight back. But if he's going down this centrist route, thinking they're going to reclaim the Tories wherever the Tories are, they just vanished as far as I'm concerned. That's a complete and utter loser and not worth supporting, and proving Musk right.
I think that it's certainly risky what they're trying to do, and I can see what they're thinking. They're thinking that the more mainstream we become, the bigger we become, the more plausible party of government we become, and all that. But I don't think people joined the Reform UK party for the Reform UK parties to be a mainstream party. They want them to be different from the big two, and they're sounding to me more and more the same. You know, Shamima Begum is our responsibility. No, she's not. Leave her in the desert. Who cares? You know, really. It's interesting and worrying, I suspect. Michael, really good call. Thank you. Thank you for ringing. Call again. Michael in Birmingham. Should we take a quick... let's take one more call, then we'll go to break. Let's talk to Heather in North Devon, who is also a Reform supporter, but you're a bit concerned right now, Heather, yes?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I agree with you entirely. Kevin, I'm utterly dismayed. I can't believe that he's gone like that. I mean, as the Tories going centrist has affected them.
Yeah.
We don't want, you know, woke, blooming, stupid policies. We want somebody who'll actually stand by what they say they stand for. And this is not what they're doing. I'm just absolutely dismayed. And me and my husband have supported them before the general election.
Yeah, I mean, what do you make of what do you make, Heather, of this kind of about face on Shamima Begum, this volte-face, as they say? I mean, what's that about?
It's disgusting. I mean, I'm wondering if there's I can't remember his name, but there was a guy in America, wasn't there? One of their lot who was saying that we should take him back. Well, quite honestly...
Yes, Sebastian Gorka. Yes, waffling on about our moral responsibility. Well, America's, Trump's policy, again, quite strangely, if you ask me, is to repatriate all of their ISIS warriors, all of their American terrorists out there in the Middle East, take them back to America, put them on trial and put them in jail. Now, you know, that's one policy. I wouldn't agree with it. But Seb Gorka said that unless we do the same, the special relationship will be very damaged. So they're demanding that we do it, which might be why Nigel Farage is saying, well, perhaps we will do it. But I think the line should be this. She's not a British citizen. If they release her in Syria, I don't care. Walk around the desert. Go to Damascus, the road to Damascus. Take it. I don't care. I don't see how Reform UK, for this is what they're arguing, can say that Britain will be safer if Shamima Begum's back in this country, even if she's in a high-security jail. Surely Britain will be safer if she's thousands of miles away wandering around the desert.
Yeah. The thing is, we've got enough potential terrorists in this country, and people will only wake up to it when it actually happens on their doorstep.
Yeah, you're right about that. You're right about that.
This is the trouble. You know, and the media they don't highlight this. They don't advertise it, do they? You know, it's just completely squashed. I mean, Talk TV to me is the only channel that we listen to, because you are the only ones who speak the truth and have got the guts to actually...
Well, thank you. I mean, but I mean, as I say, I don't classify myself as a Reform supporter or a Tory supporter or anything. I think broadcasters like me should sort of stay neutral, but I'm not going to lie, you know, a lot of Reform UK's policies I find attractive. I certainly find the idea of solving the migrant crisis a good idea, and hitherto, well, I still think it's a good idea never to let Shamima Begum back into this country. And frankly, if I was Reform UK, I can't understand why they would think that an arch Remainer like Charlie Mullins could somehow campaign for them.
It's ridiculous, because Nigel Farage was actually UKIP before.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I started to wonder what was happening when Ben Habib was no longer in Reform UK, because he's an eloquent man, and I think he tells the truth.
Well, you see, you may have heard he was on the show earlier. He's always a welcome guest on this show, and I think that the doubts that you and I are discussing right now are the doubts that caused Ben to leave the party. Also, Howard Cox has left the party. I mean, I don't think it's a massive exodus at the moment, but I think that your concerns are the concerns of many people in Reform UK right now. What is going on? Why are they going leftwards? Why are they supporting Shamima? Why are they allowing a Remainer into the party to campaign for them? It's all very interesting and very worrying. Heather, excellent call. Thank you very much. Call me again. Heather in North Devon there. Well, let's keep this conversation going. I mean, if you're a Reform UK party member or a supporter, what do you think about this apparent change of direction? They're heading leftwards. Shamima, come home. Oh, Charlie Mullins. Oh, yeah, you're a Remainer. You can be on our books. You can be a candidate. Eh? Also, they're very, very strident, weren't they, in their denunciation of Tommy Robinson. I mean, denounce Tommy Robinson if you want. I don't have any strong feelings about Tommy Robinson, but when you hear sort of Nigel and Richard Tice, you know, stridently denouncing him, by all means do it, you know, free speech and all that, but they do sound a bit like the main parties, don't they? They do sound like they're a Tory or Labour, like the rest of them. That's just a thought of mine. Anyway, we're going to break now. I'll read some more of your messages. We've got voice apps. We've got WhatsApp voice notes to play you, and we'll take more of your calls, of course. So stay where you are and give me a ring. 0344499 1000. Let's get it on.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is...
Welcome back. This is from Darren. I think if Farage wants the pound shop Rod Stewart, that would be Charlie Mullins, Dino Rod Stewart, as some people call him, to stand for reform. Darren says, I personally don't like him for the reasons you've mentioned. We have to assume he knows what he's doing, as you cannot second-guess him. He always thinks carefully before he acts, so he must have reasons. Asking Mullins to stand, well, you know, I don't think we... you don't stand back and say this politician's made a big mistake, but he must have his reasons, therefore let's support him. I'm not sure if he has thought this through, but point taken, Darren. This is from Michelle, talking about West Streeting. Streeting should be in jail regarding his tweets about pushing people in front of trains and setting up a vigilante group. He is not the best of them. He's a thug in a suit that has no business in government. I think it's a bit strong, but you're entitled to your view, Michelle. I mean, I think he's made a big mistake in what he said about... he says that the rhetoric surrounding the ethnicity of the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs could put the Muslim community in danger. We might have another mosque massacre like they had in New Zealand. I think that's just nonsense, and it's the sort of attitude we have to stamp out. Otherwise, we're never going to confront this issue, which apparently is still going on. Here we go. What else have we got? Yeah, Johnny says, make Orwell fiction again. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen those hats. He's not fiction anymore. We're living through Orwellian times, aren't we? Alan Story says, I've been a great supporter of reform up until now, but I think Nigel has to be very careful which direction he is heading. We all expect a lot from him. Yeah, you know, I mean, he's still achieving great things, but in his lust for power, if you like, I think he might be being seduced by the mainstream, and if he gets too seduced, I don't think that traditional Reform UK supporters are going to like it one bit. I've got so many messages about it. Anyway, let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Mark in Glasgow. Hello, Mark.
Hi, good evening.
Hi. What would you like to say?
Right. If you want to wreck a fledgling party, you get people from the Labour and Conservative Party, high-profile people, to join it. You then have them make very public exits at some point, and the people who have decided they would give reform a chance, it unsettles them. It's a great strategy for wreckers. You want to wreck a party, that's what you do. So there's a lot of criticism going on right now for Nigel Farage. I have to say that it's a great way for the other parties to deflect from their own failings.
Yeah, do you think he's making a mistake, you know, what with the Shamima Begum issue, and now allowing Charlie, apparently allowing Charlie Mullins to join the party? Do you think this is
I think if you've got an arch remainer, the danger is here. You've got people who are joining for the wrong reasons. They're joining so that at some point in future they can depart the party in a great deal of publicity. In terms of Shamima Begum, if I was watching or listening to something, I think on your channel this morning or yesterday, and frankly, she scares the crap out of me. We don't want her back here, and Nigel hopefully will see sense on that one. He should talk to the various political, the MI5, MI6 boys, and take his view there.
Yeah, you're right, Mark. He said, I don't see her as, you know, one of the worst kind of ISIS people. I don't see her, he said something about, didn't see her as one of their extreme killers. Well, I do. I think she was an ISIS bride, traced her to her country. She's an extreme terrorist. She is an extreme terrorist, and it would be a big mistake to let her back here, because if nothing else, it would cost us millions of pounds to watch her round the clock.
If you let one back in, you let them all back in.
Yeah, good point. Thin end of the wedge, absolutely.
You can't take her to court because there are no witnesses surviving. You can't call witnesses. They're all dead.
She and her mates killed them all. Exactly right. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or buried them alive. Yeah.
Yeah. Mark, great call. Thank you very much for ringing. Ring me again. That's Mark in Glasgow. Let's go to Laura Jane in Hampshire. Hello, Laura Jane.
Hi. We have our first branch meeting opening for the first time for Southampton North.
Reform meeting, yeah.
Reform next week.
Yes.
And I think it's going to be quite interesting.
Heated, I would have thought. Heated.
I think it might be quite heated. A few of us are going to feel very uncomfortable with these things that have cropped up today. And yet again, listening to Ben Habib, I just feel I wish he could come back. I wish he could come back, and all of those things, because I think he's intellectually very, very good and interesting.
He's extremely articulate. He was a great spokesman for the party.
Yeah.
But I think he feels. Well, I don't think. I know.
I can see
he feels.
now
He feels the party is lurching leftwards, and he doesn't like it.
No, I can see that.
I sense you kind of feel that as well, Laura Jane.
Well, I just over the course of this evening, my heart has been sinking, and listening to him, I thought, right, he obviously knew more than we did, and he's not been able to articulate it for all sorts of reasons, but I'm beginning to read between the lines more than I would. Yeah. But can I just say one more thing before before I'm arrested for being a conspiracy theorist when I'm talking in the pub? Well, one thing is very sure is in the old days when you were chatting and having an argument with friends, it was your friends who shut you up, not the speech police. Your friends would say, think again. What you're saying is really, really wrong, or whatever, and But as a conspiracy theorist, I'm sorry, this is meant to be. This guy, as in Mr. Starmer, the communist ideas, it's there. They want to destroy this country, and they're going about it the right way. And I'm sorry, I feel very, very down about it at the moment. I do feel they are there for a reason, and. Yeah.
Oh, they've got plans, all right, Laura Jane, and these are plans that won't make this country a very nice place to live in. When you have to start saying, "Be careful, pub walls have ears," then you know the sinister territory we've entered. It's very worrying.
Yeah, it is.
Well, Laura Jane, listen. When is your meeting next week? Did you say?
Tuesday, 7:00.
Well, why don't you give me a ring on Wednesday or maybe later on Tuesday night and let me know how it goes. I'd be very interested.
Well, we'll all be in the pub afterwards. And
I told you, you got to be careful. Don't go to the pub, you'll get arrested. Give me a ring on Wednesday. Seriously, let me know what happens. I'd be very fascinated to hear. Laura Jane, thank you very much for an excellent call. Let's talk next week, hopefully. Laura Jane, Reform UK member there in Hampshire. We'll go to break now. When we come back, Paul in Horsham, stay where you are. We'll come to you next.
most pernicious part of this government is that the messaging, everything they've said, has been very deliberate in regards to, without bringing in the legislation, shutting down opposition speech.
Yes.
Free speech. We've heard it all.
Right.
If you express a view that is not towing the Labour left party line, then you are immediately branded as being far right.
Right.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Here's a quick message, a WhatsApp message from Michelle. Kevin, the Patriots are giving Nigel a huge ego. He feels that because of the voter apathy of both the two parties, the main parties. He can now consider the Patriots on lock. In other words, he can take them for granted because they're desperate for change. So now he's trying to appeal to the lefties. He's nothing like Trump, and Musk is absolutely correct. Farage isn't the man to lead reform. Rupert Lowe is. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Paul in Horsham. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Kevin. Good show as normal.
Thank you, mate.
Just to say two things, if I may.
Yeah, go for it.
Charlie Mullins.
Yeah.
Right. He wants to join Reform. He should join Labour, really, because he's a liar, just like Labour are. He said, I think he was interviewed on talkTV, might be GB News, I don't know. It was before the election. He said, if Labour get in, I'll be moving to another country.
He did. You know, he did move to. He's moved to Spain. But what he's saying, he's saying that in between that was just before Christmas. What he's saying now is he always had a house there, but he's moved there full time. But he's saying that Nigel Farage has asked him to stand for reform and to campaign for reform. So if that is the case, he'll come back to Britain and do that.
Right, okay. Number two, I know you're on a time slot here.
Yes, all right.
Number two, Nigel Farage, love him to bits, but I don't understand this. I voted for him last election. He wants this, I think she's a terrorist, I can't pronounce her name.
Shamima Begum.
That's
ISIS bride terrorist, yeah.
Thank you. Now, he said he's slightly politely urging Labour to get her back. But what I don't know, why? What's his reason? What's his reason? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it seems to be American policy. He wants to please Donald Trump, so maybe it's something to do with that. But I can't work it out at all, Paul. And I think I can sense that you're a bit worried about the direction of travel here.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, mate. Well, good call. Thank you very much. Call me again. Paul in Horsham there. I think we got a WhatsApp voice note. I thought we had a few, but we seem to have gone down to just one. Here's Steve on Rachel Reeves.
Hello, Kev. I see Rachel Reeves has been compared to a lettuce. I'm sure she knows a thing or two about lettuces, because I'm sure on her CV she's probably got greengrocer on it somewhere.
I think you're probably right. We've got a lettuce in the studio now with Rachel written on it, so I wonder which will last longer, our lettuce or Rachel. Let's see, shall we? Now, let's... oh, by the way, of course, Petri Hoskins will be in just a little while to tell you what she's got lined up for you between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. But in the meantime, we've got time to go back to the phones. We're going to talk to a man who comes from a fantastic part of the world, Fulham. Just lost to West Ham, but hey-ho, still the greatest team on the face of the earth, he said, and no one believed him. Let's talk to Alex in Fulham. Hello, Alex.
Hi, Kevin. So I'm actually not a man. I'm a lady.
That's all
I
right.
do live in Fulham.
I didn't say you were a man.
No, you did. You said, well, now let's go to the phones and talk to a man from...
Oh, right, I did I? Oh, yeah. And I've got an F in brackets there, so I'm wrong twice. Bad. Anyway, nice to talk to you. What would you like to say?
Well, first and foremost, I would just like to wish you and your team a very, very happy New Year.
And to you, Alex, and to you. Thank you.
You are my favorite place to go for real talk, so thank you very much. So I have just two comments, and I'm going to absolutely probably, spit on my name after I say this, knowing how I know you feel about this specific subject. But what the Sussex said with regards to Zuckerberg getting rid of
the fact checkers,
the fact checks, I think they are absolutely 100% correct. Because
you agree with them, yeah?
100%.
Why is that, Alex?
Why is that? Because where do you think fake news comes from? If massive organizations like Meta, TikTok, Instagram do not have the facilities or the mechanisms in place to actually fact check.
Yeah, but the trouble is, Alex, now, if fact checkers were entirely neutral and went about their job in an unbiased way and honestly checked the facts, then I suppose I wouldn't mind them that much. I don't like the idea of them in the first place. If I want to post something,
I challenge.
But if I want to post something on X or Facebook or Instagram, I don't see why I should have some little geek from California saying this isn't true. Now, what Zuckerberg said, quite rightly, was the problem with fact checkers is they tend to be left-wing and they just censor people with right-wing opinions. And that's not good enough. And who, Alex, checks the fact checkers?
Sorry, excuse me. I don't mean to speak over you. I apologize. I have a 6-second lag on my side. So here's the thing with Meta, with X, with TikTok, and Instagram, and all of the social platforms. They're not actually fact-checked by actual individuals. Yes, they're for the things that are censored or go into review, sure. But they actually have now algorithms built in that do the work for people.
Yeah, but who sets up the algorithms? Who checks the fact checkers? As Zuckerberg said, Alex, this is all left-wing bias stuff. This is the suppression of right-wing views.
So I disagree with you, but then again, this is talk.
I think fact checkers are the scourge of the earth. I think fact checkers should be banned. They should go and work in their spiritual home, North Korea.
Well, then, I guess then we should ban all social platforms because today...
No. Social platforms...
algorithms. It's all done by algorithms. So there aren't actual live people checking...
What do you mean algorithms? If I post something, algorithms don't say that's not true.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
Yes, okay.
Well, the fact checkers' algorithms say it's not true.
So basically, they say your content is gone under review.
Yeah, for left-wing reasons.
Of the community guidelines.
Alex, listen, I've got to go now, but we're going to agree to disagree here. But let me just leave you with this parting shot. Fact checkers are the scourge of the earth, and they need to be put out of work. Thank God Elon Musk has done it, and also now Mark Zuckerberg. But I respect your viewpoint. We just don't agree. Thank you very much for the call, though, and please call me again. Alex in the wonderful town of Fulham there. And who's in the studio? It's Petrie Hoskins.
You didn't tell me you interviewed the Chancellor earlier.
What Chancellor? What? No. Yeah. She's in the studio.
She's in the studio.
It's a hilarious talk joke. There you go. It's a lettuce. Just like Liz Truss had a lettuce. Which will last longer, Rachel Reeves or the lettuce? I don't want to spoil this hilarious joke, it's Rachel Reeves.
I loved the lettuce watch with Liz Truss. It was my favourite thing to do.
It worked with her. It won't work with Rachel.
No, she's hanging around for a while.
Yeah, of course she is.
Actually, that's what I'm going to be talking about is do we want more tax or cuts? Because one of them has to be true. I'm going to be talking to the eminently wonderful Vicky Price about this. And also, is her budget to blame or is it the global issues? People are waiting for Trump to see what he does with tariffs. That's causing a lot of pressure globally on the finances. So we're going to be looking at that with Vicky. But then at midnight for the phone